Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Terra Nova, watching the massive space station grow larger through the view screen. After 3 months of traveling through space at faster-than-light speed, they had finally reached their destination. The Galactic Council's headquarters looked like a giant metal flower floating in the darkness of space. Its petals made of gleaming silver and blue materials that humans had never seen before. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Lisa Carter, who stood beside him. She was the ship's chief scientist, and her job was to study alien life forms. Lisa had dreamed of this moment her entire life. First contact with other intelligent species would change everything for humanity. They would learn new technologies, make friends across the galaxy, take their place among the stars. Jake felt the same excitement, but he was also nervous. As captain, he was responsible for humanity's first diplomatic mission to meet alien civilizations. The message from the Galactic Council had been brief but clear. They wanted to meet with representatives from Earth to discuss humanity's place in the galaxy. Seemed like a formal welcome to the cosmic community. "Begin docking procedures," Jake ordered his crew. The Terra Nova was Earth's most advanced starship, built with their newest technology. It had taken humanity 5 years to develop faster-than-light travel, and this ship represented the best they could offer. Jake hoped it would make a good impression on the aliens. As they approached the docking bay, Jake could see other ships. From across the galaxy, some looked like giant crystals that pulsed with inner light. Others appeared to be made of flowing metal that moved like liquid. There were ships that looked like they were built from living coral, and some that seemed to be made of pure energy contained in force fields. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant Bob Martinez from the communications station. "It's coming from the station." "Put it on screen," Jake replied. The view screen flickered. And suddenly, they were looking at something that made everyone on the bridge gasp. The alien on the screen looked like a giant insect, but it walked upright like a human. It had 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws, and its head was covered in what looked like black armor. Its eyes glowed with a cold blue light. "Greetings, humans from the planet Earth," the alien said. Its voice sounded like metal scraping against metal. "I am Vexthera, Chancellor of the Galactic Council. You will dock your vessel in Bay 94 and report to the council chambers immediately." The transmission ended without giving Jake a chance to respond. "Well, that was friendly," muttered Dr. Carter, but Jake could hear the worry in her voice. Docking went smoothly, and soon Jake and Lisa were walking through corridors that seemed impossibly large. The ceiling stretched high above their heads. The walls were covered in symbols that looked like writing from dozens of different languages. Other aliens moved through the corridors, and Jake tried not to stare. He saw creatures that looked like walking trees, beings made of what appeared to be living rock, and entities that seemed to be floating clouds of gas, held together by some kind of energy field. "This is amazing," Lisa whispered, trying to record everything with her portable scanner. "There must be hundreds of different species here." They reached the council chambers, and Jake's heart sank. The room was enormous, with rows of seats that stretched up toward the ceiling like a stadium. In each seat sat a different type of alien, and all of them were staring down at the small group of humans who had just entered. Jake counted quickly, and realized there were nearly 1,000 alien representatives in the room. At the center of the chamber stood Chancellor Vexthera, even more intimidating in person than he had been on the screen. His insect-like body was covered in natural armor that looked harder than steel, and his 4 arms moved independently as he gestured toward the humans. "Members of the Galactic Council," Vexthera announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The humans from Earth have arrived to hear our decision." "Decision?" Jake stepped forward. "We thought this was a first contact meeting. We're here to establish diplomatic relations between Earth and the Galactic Council." A sound filled the chamber that Jake realized was laughter, but it came from 1,000 different types of throats and sounded nothing like human laughter. Some aliens clicked their claws, others buzzed like insects, and some made sounds like grinding stone. "Diplomatic relations?" Vexthera's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Human, you misunderstand your situation. We have been watching your species for over 200 of your years. We have seen your wars, your destruction of your own planet, and your primitive behavior. The Galactic Council has already made its decision about humanity. Jake felt his stomach drop. What decision? Vexthera raised one of his clawed hands, and the chamber fell silent. The Galactic Council has voted unanimously. Humanity is classified as a primitive slave species. Your planet will be divided among the member civilizations, and your people will be harvested for labor across the galaxy. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. He heard Lisa gasp behind him, and he struggled to find his voice. That's impossible. We're intelligent beings. We have rights. Rights. This time the alien laughter was even louder. You speak of rights while your species wages war against itself? While you poison your own air and water? While you allow millions of your own kind to starve, while others live in excess? A new alien stood up from the seats above them. This one looked like it was made entirely of blue crystal, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes. We have studied your transmissions for decades. Your entertainment shows celebrate violence. Your news broadcasts show nothing but conflict and destruction. Your governments lie to your own people. Another alien, this one appearing to be a cloud, of purple gas floating in a containment suit, added its voice to the condemnation. Your species destroys other life forms on your planet for sport. You cut down entire forests. You make other species extinct through carelessness. You are a plague upon your own world. Jake tried to speak, tried to defend humanity, but Vexthera cut him off. The decision has been made. Your ship and crew will be held here while the harvest fleets prepare. Earth will be conquered within 6 standard months. Your people will be sorted by physical capabilities and distributed among the member species as workers. Some will mine crystals in the deep caverns of Nexus Prime. Others will tend the great gardens of the Botanical Collective. The strongest will work in the manufacturing centers of the Industrial Union. You can't do this, Lisa finally found. Her voice, we came here in peace. We wanted to join the galactic community as equals. Equals? Vexthera's blue eyes seemed to glow brighter. You're no more equal to us than your cattle are equal to you. In fact, your cattle might be more useful. At least they do not wage war against other cattle. Jake felt anger building inside him, but he forced himself to stay calm. If you've been watching us for 200 years, then you know we're capable of change. We've ended slavery on our own world. We've created art and music and literature. We've begun to take care of our environment. Too little, too late, Vexthera replied. The council has spoken. Guards, take these humans to holding cells. Ensure they are comfortable. They will be among the first of their species to experience life under proper supervision. As the guards approached them, Jake noticed something strange. The aliens moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a machine. Their formation was mathematically precise, their timing exact. Even their individual movements seemed to follow some kind of pattern. Lisa must have noticed the same thing, because she whispered to Jake as they were led away. They're like computers. Everything they do follows a program. Jake nodded, filing that observation away for later. As they were escorted through the corridors toward their prison, he realized that humanity was about to face its greatest challenge, but perhaps being human might be more of an advantage than these aliens realized in their holding cell. Jake looked at Lisa and saw the same determination in her eyes that he felt in his heart. They might be prisoners now, but they were still human. And humans, Jake thought grimly, had always been very good at surviving the impossible. The emergency meeting at Earth Defense Command took place deep underground in Colorado. Admiral Ben Rodriguez stared at the recording they had received from the Terra Nova one more time. The message was brief and terrifying. Captain Morrison's voice was steady, but Ben could hear the fear behind his words. This is our final transmission. The Galactic Council has declared humanity a slave species. An invasion fleet is coming. You have 6 months to prepare. God help us all. The recording ended, leaving the room in silence. Around the table sat Earth's top military leaders and scientists. General Mike Thompson, head of global defense, was the first to speak. How many ships are we talking about? He asked. Dr. Susan Walsh, Earth's top xenobiologist, consulted her tablet. Based on what we saw from the Terra Nova sensors before, they were captured, We counted over 3,000 ships. And that was just what they could see from the docking bay. 3,000 ships, repeated Colonel Amy Foster, head of the Strategic Defense Initiative. We have maybe 200 combat vessels total, and most of those are barely space-worthy. Admiral Rodriguez rubbed his tired eyes. He had been preparing for this conversation ever since they lost contact with the Terra Nova 3 days ago. It gets worse. According to the transmission, there are 847 different alien species in this council. If even half of them send ships, we're looking at a force that outnumbers us by thousands to one. What about their technology? Asked Dr. Peter Hayes, the military's chief psychologist. The Terra Nova's scans showed energy weapons that could destroy our best battleships with a single shot. Our shields can deflect anything we have. The mood in the room grew even darker. Ben looked around the table at the faces of people who had dedicated their lives to protecting Earth. Now they were being asked to fight a battle that seemed impossible to win. There has to be something, Colonel Foster said quietly. Some weakness we can exploit. Dr. Hayes pulled up a holographic display showing the alien ships from the Terra Nova's recordings. I've been studying their formations and movements. Look at this. He pointed to the way the ships moved in perfect geometric patterns. Everything they do follows exact mathematical principles. Their formations are flawless. Their timing is precise to the microsecond. That sounds like a strength, not a weakness, General Thompson pointed out. Maybe, Dr. Hayes replied. But I've also been studying their communication patterns. Message follows the same structure. Every decision seems to be made through logical consensus. There's no individual initiative, no creative thinking. Dr. Walsh nodded slowly. The Terra Nova's cultural database shows that these species have been spacefaring for thousands of years. They've had time to perfect their methods, to eliminate inefficiency. But here's what bothers me, Dr. Hayes continued. In all their transmissions, in all their plans, there's no room for the unexpected. They've calculated exactly how long it will take to defeat us based on our military capabilities. They've planned exactly how to sort our population for maximum efficiency. Everything is predetermined. Colonel Foster leaned forward. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe our greatest weakness is actually our greatest strength. We're chaotic, we're unpredictable. We make decisions based on emotion as much as logic. These aliens seem to have evolved past all of that. Admiral Rodriguez frowned. How is being chaotic a good thing when we're facing superior technology? Dr. Hayes stood up and began pacing. Think about Earth's history. Every time we've faced extinction, we've survived not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because we adapted. When the climate changed, we learned to use fire and tools. When disasters struck, we found new ways to survive. We're the only species on Earth that lives in every environment, from frozen tundra to burning deserts. But these aliens have superior weapons, General Thompson argued. Yes, but weapons are just tools. Tools can be turned against their users, if you're creative enough. Dr. Hayes brought up another display. Look at this analysis of their ship designs. They're perfectly efficient, but that efficiency comes at a cost. Their systems are so integrated that damage to one area affects everything else. They're designed for maximum performance under ideal conditions. Dr. Walsh was studying the data. He's right. Their technology assumes perfect maintenance, perfect conditions, perfect cooperation. But what happens when you introduce chaos into that equation? Colonel Foster's eyes lit up. Guerrilla warfare. We can't meet them head-on, but we might be able to disrupt their perfect plans. Exactly, Dr. Hayes said. These aliens have spent thousands of years eliminating randomness from their lives. They might not know how to handle truly random events. Admiral Rodriguez felt a spark of hope for the first time since receiving Morrison's message. What? You need time to study everything we know about these species? And I need to talk to every psychologist, anthropologist, and historian we have. If we're going to beat them, we need to understand not just their technology, but how they think. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, Captain Morrison and Dr. Carter sat in their holding cell aboard the Galactic Council station. The cell was comfortable by prison standards, with beds, a table, and even what appeared to be entertainment devices. But it was still a cage. "They're treating us like pets," Lisa said, examining the food dispenser that provided perfectly nutritious but tasteless meals. "Everything is calculated for maximum efficiency." Jake was studying their guard, a tall, insect-like creature similar to Chancellor Vexetta, but smaller. The alien stood perfectly still outside their cell, never moving, never seeming to get tired. Or bored. "Guard," Jake called out. The alien's head turned toward him with mechanical precision. "What is your designation?" the alien asked in its metallic voice. "I'm Jake Morrison. What's your name?" "I am Worker Drone 7742 of the Zephyrian Collective." "That's not a name," Jake said. "That's a number. Don't you have a name that's just yours?" The alien stared at him for a long moment. "Names serve no functional purpose. Designations provide all necessary identification." Lisa joined the conversation. "But don't you ever wonder what it would be like to have something that's uniquely yours, a name that no one else has?" Worker Drone 7742's mandibles clicked in what might have been confusion. Individual identity reduces collective efficiency. The hive mind provides optimal decision-making. "But doesn't it get boring?" Jake asked. "Never making your own choices?" "Boredom is an inefficient emotion that we have evolved beyond." Jake exchanged a glance with Lisa. Here was their first clue. These aliens didn't just think differently than humans. They had apparently eliminated the very things that made humans human. Emotion, creativity, individual thought, all the things the Galactic Council saw as weaknesses. "What do you do when you're not guarding prisoners?" Lisa asked. "I perform assigned duties as directed by the collective consciousness." "But what do you like to do?" Jake pressed. The alien's head tilted at an odd angle. "I do not understand the question." Over the next several days, Jake and Lisa began what they privately called Operation Confusion. Every time Worker Drone 7742 or any other guard came near their cell, they would ask questions that had no logical answers. They would tell jokes that made no sense. They would sing songs that served no purpose except to sound nice. At first, the guards simply ignored them. But slowly, Jake began to notice small changes. Worker Drone 7742 would linger a few seconds longer when Jake told a story about his childhood. Another guard, a crystalline being called Unit 47 of the Nexari Matrix, seemed puzzled by Lisa's habit of humming while she worked. "I think it's working," Lisa whispered to Jake one evening. "You're starting to ask questions instead of just following orders." Jake nodded. It was a small victory, but it gave him hope. If 2 humans in a prison cell could confuse their alien guards with nothing but words and songs, what could 6 billion humans do when the invasion fleet arrived? Back on Earth, Colonel Foster was putting together the most unusual military unit in human history. They called it the Chaos Division, and its job was to do everything that made no military sense. Instead of protecting important targets, they would attack random locations. Instead of following standard tactics, they would do the unexpected. Remember, she told her first group of volunteers, "Your job is not to win battles. Your job is to make the aliens confused, be unpredictable, be human." As the months passed and the alien fleet drew closer, Earth prepared for war in a way no planet had ever prepared before. They were going to fight the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy with humanity's oldest weapon, the ability to surprise. The alien fleet arrived at Earth exactly when they said they would. Admiral Rodriguez watched from the command center as thousands of ships appeared on the edge of the solar system. The display screen showed vessels of every shape and size, from massive crystal dreadnoughts that sparkled like diamonds to sleek metal ships that moved like liquid mercury through space. "My God," whispered General Thompson. "There are so many of them." The first wave of attacks came within hours. The Zephyrian hive ships released swarms of smaller fighter craft that moved in perfect formation toward Earth's orbital defense stations. The human defenders opened fire with everything they had, but their weapons barely scratched the alien holes. "Station Alpha is gone," reported Lieutenant Martinez from the communications desk. "Beta Station just went dark. We're losing them all." The crystal ships of the Nexari focused beams of pure energy on Earth's military bases. Each beam was perfectly aimed, destroying targets with mathematical precision. Within 6 hours, most of Earth's major military installations had been reduced to smoking craters, but the worst was yet to come. The gaseous entities of the Vorthon Collective began flowing into Earth's electronic systems like a digital plague. Power grids failed across the globe. Communication networks went silent. Even simple devices like cars and phones stopped working. As the alien consciousness took control of anything electronic, "It's over," General Thompson said quietly as he watched the reports coming in from around the world. "We can't fight back if we can't even communicate with our own forces." Admiral Rodriguez refused to give up hope. "What about Colonel Foster's Chaos Division? Are they still operational?" "Last we heard, they were abandoning all their electronic equipment and going completely primitive," replied Dr. Hayes. "No radios, no computers, nothing the Vorthon can control." In the ruins of what used to be Chicago, Lieutenant Danny Cooper crouched behind a pile of rubble with 12 other soldiers. They had watched their base get destroyed by alien energy weapons 3 days ago. But instead of surrendering, they had done something that confused their alien pursuers. They ran away singing old rock songs at the top of their lungs. "We singing?" asked Private Kelly Johnson, a young soldier who had joined Danny's group after her unit was captured. "Because it makes no tactical sense," Danny replied, checking his old hunting rifle. "The aliens expect us to either fight strategically or surrender logically, so we're going to do neither." Through the broken windows of a nearby building, they could see a Zephyrian patrol moving down the street. The insect-like aliens moved in perfect formation, their sensors scanning for human resistance fighters. Their movements were so precise, they looked like a machine. "Remember the plan?" Danny whispered to his team. "We hit them hard, then we run in completely random directions while shouting movie quotes. Make no sense whatsoever." The attack lasted exactly 90 seconds. Danny's team opened fire from 6 different positions, then immediately scattered in directions that followed no military logic whatsoever. One soldier ran north while reciting poetry. Another went south while singing a lullaby. Danny himself headed east while loudly discussing his grandmother's cookie recipe with no one in particular. The Zephyrian patrol tried to pursue. But their tactical computers couldn't predict where the humans would go next. Every algorithm they used assumed logical behavior, but there was no logic to what the humans were doing. "Target behavior does not conform to expected patterns," reported Warrior Prime 3451 to his Hive commander. "Humans appear to be suffering from collective mental breakdown." But Danny wasn't suffering from a breakdown. As he hid in the basement of a destroyed library, he smiled. The aliens had superior weapons and perfect tactics, but they couldn't handle chaos. Every time they tried to predict human behavior, the humans did something completely unexpected. Thousands of miles away in the Amazon rainforest, Maria Santos was organizing a different kind of resistance. She had been a park ranger before the invasion, and she knew the jungle better than anyone. When the alien ships arrived, she gathered the indigenous tribes and a group of scientists who had been studying the rainforest. "We fight like our ancestors fought," she told the assembled group. "We use the jungle itself as our weapon." The Nexari crystal ships that patrolled the Amazon expected to find human settlements that they could destroy with precision strikes. Instead, they found empty buildings and silence. The humans had melted into the jungle like ghosts, leaving no electronic signatures for the Vorthon entities to detect. When the aliens sent ground troops to search for survivors, they found something they couldn't understand. Traps that made no technological sense, but worked anyway. Pits covered with leaves, logs that swung down from trees, poisoned darts blown through hollow reeds. "These are primitive weapons," reported Crystal Node 847 to the Nexari command ship. "They should be ineffective against our armor, but the traps weren't meant to kill the aliens. They were meant to slow them down, confuse them, make them waste time and energy on threats that didn't follow the rules of modern warfare." While the aliens tried to understand why humans would use such outdated methods, Maria's people would strike and disappear again. Back on the Galactic Council station, Dr. Carter was monitoring the invasion through the entertainment systems in their cell. The aliens had provided them with access to galactic news networks, apparently wanting their prisoners to watch humanity's defeat. But what Carter saw on the news confused her. The reports showed human resistance activities that made no sense. To the alien reporters, humans were fighting with primitive weapons. They were using tactics that had been obsolete for centuries. They were behaving in ways that violated every principle of logical warfare. The human resistance continues to engage in irrational behavior, reported a crystalline news anchor. Military analysts are struggling to understand their strategic objectives. That's because we don't have strategic objectives, Carter whispered to Jake. We're just being human. Jake was watching worker drone 7742, who seemed more confused than usual. Over the past weeks, their conversations had begun to affect the alien guard. Sometimes he would stand in different positions. Sometimes he would ask questions that had nothing to do with his duties. Worker drone, Jake called out. What do you think about the invasion? The invasion proceeds according to mathematical projections, the alien replied, but his voice sounded less certain than before. But the humans aren't following the projections, are they? Worker drone 7742's mandibles clicked nervously. Human behavior is difficult to calculate. Maybe that's because you can't calculate everything, Lisa suggested. Maybe some things in the universe are supposed to be unpredictable. The alien stared at her for a long time before responding. Unpredictability creates inefficiency. It also creates possibilities, Jake said. When you always know what's going to happen next, life becomes boring. Boredom is not a factor in optimal existence, the alien insisted. But he didn't sound as convinced as he used to. Meanwhile, in the slave camps that the aliens had set up around the world, something unexpected was happening. The humans who had been captured were supposed to work quietly and efficiently while they waited to be shipped off-world. Instead, they were doing something the aliens had never encountered before. They were teaching each other songs at first. The alien overseers didn't understand why this was a problem. The humans were still working, still following orders. Die. The songs seemed to spread from camp to camp like a virus. Soon, thousands of human prisoners were singing while they worked, and the sound was having a strange effect on their alien guards. Some of the guards began to listen to the songs instead of focusing on their duties. Others started asking questions about what the words meant. A few even tried to hum along, though their alien vocal cords weren't designed for human melodies. The prisoners are engaging in non-productive vocal behavior, reported Overseer Unit 23 to his superiors. It serves no functional purpose, but it appears to be spreading. Stop them from singing, came the reply. But when the guards tried to silence the humans, something even stranger happened. The prisoners didn't fight back or argue. They simply started telling jokes instead. When the jokes were banned, they began sharing stories. When stories were forbidden, they started drawing pictures in the dirt with sticks. Every time the aliens eliminated one form of human expression, the humans found another. They seemed to have an endless supply of ways to be creative, to be individual, to be stubbornly, chaotically human. Dr. Carter watched all of this unfold through the news reports, and she began to understand something important. The alien invasion was failing not because humans were winning battles, but because humans were being themselves. Their chaotic, unpredictable, creative nature was like a virus spreading through the perfectly ordered alien civilization. The galaxy had spent thousands of years creating perfect efficiency, perfect order, perfect predictability. But perfection, Carter realized, was also perfectly vulnerable to the one thing it could never account for: the beautiful, wonderful, impossible chaos of being human. 6 months after the invasion began, the Alien Alliance was experiencing something they had never encountered in thousands of years of galactic conquest. Their perfect victory was turning into a nightmare of confusion and chaos. Captain Kate Wilson, crouched in the ruins of what used to be NASA's Kennedy Space Center, working on her latest project. Before the invasion, she had been one of Earth's top engineers. Now she was part of the strangest research team in human history. Her job was to drive alien computers insane. "Pass me that piece of Nexary crystal," she whispered to her partner. Dr. Greg Phillips, former computer programmer who had joined the Resistance after his family was captured. The crystal fragment came from a downed alien ship. Kate had discovered that alien technology was incredibly advanced, but also incredibly rigid. Their computers were designed to process information in perfect logical sequences. They couldn't handle data that made no sense. "Are you sure this will work?" Greg asked, as Kate connected the crystal to a simple battery and a speaker they had, salvaged from a car radio. "There's only one way to find out," Kate replied. She activated her device, and suddenly the speaker began playing something no alien computer had ever processed before. It was a mixture of children's laughter, jazz music, poetry readings, and random conversations Kate had recorded from the resistance camps. The effect on nearby alien technology was immediate. A Vorthan patrol drone that had been scanning the area began spinning in circles, its sensors overloaded by data that followed no logical pattern. A Zephyrian communication relay started broadcasting random signals across multiple frequencies. Even the lights in the alien command post a mile away began flickering in an erratic pattern. "It's working," Greg said with amazement. "Their systems are trying to process human creativity, and it's overloading their circuits." Kate smiled grimly. The aliens had made one crucial mistake. They had built their entire civilization around perfect efficiency and logical thinking. But humans had evolved differently. Human brains could process information that made no logical sense and still function perfectly. Alien computers could not. "Let's see how they handle this," Kate said, activating 12 more devices that she had hidden around the area. Within minutes, alien technology across a 50-mile radius was experiencing cascading failures as human creativity virus bombed their networks. Meanwhile, in the hidden command center deep beneath the Sahara Desert, Admiral Rodriguez was coordinating the most unusual military campaign in history. Instead of traditional battles, his forces were fighting with chaos, creativity, and pure human stubbornness. "Report from South America," announced Lieutenant Martinez. "Maria Santos's team has convinced 3 different alien patrol groups to start arguing with each other. Apparently they introduced the concept of personal opinions to their guards. And now the aliens can't agree on anything." "Excellent," Rodriguez replied. "What about the prison camps?" Dr. Hayes consulted his tablet. "The singing campaign has spread to over 200 camps worldwide. We're getting reports that alien guards are starting to request specific songs. Some of them have even asked prisoners to teach them how to whistle." Admiral Rodriguez had too. Smile at that. The idea that alien prison guards were learning to whistle from their human captives would have seemed impossible a year ago. But Dr. Hayes had been right about human unpredictability being their greatest weapon. And the North American resistance? "Danny Cooper's Chaos Squads have evolved their tactics again," Hayes reported. "They're now leaving gifts for alien patrols. Flowers, handmade drawings, cookies when they can find ingredients." Completely baffled by the concept of giving something away for free. On the captured Terra Nova, Captain Morrison was witnessing the most dramatic change of all. Worker drone 7742, the Zephyrian guard who had been watching their cell for months, was becoming something his species had never seen before. He was becoming an individual. It had started with small things. The alien had begun standing in different positions instead of the regulation guard stance. He had started asking questions that had nothing to do with his duties. Most importantly, he had begun making decisions without consulting the hive mind. Worker drone Jake called out one morning. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, about how choice creates inefficiency." "I've been thinking about that also," the alien replied, and Jake noticed that his voice sounded different. Less mechanical, more uncertain. "I do not understand why I continue to think about concepts that serve no functional purpose." "Maybe because thinking about useless things is what makes life interesting," Lisa suggested. "What's the point of being alive if you never get to wonder about anything?" Worker drone 7742's mandibles clicked in a pattern Jake had never heard before. "Yesterday, I chose to take a different path to this guard post. It was less efficient than the standard route, but I wanted to see what was down that corridor. Hive mind did not order this deviation." "How did it feel to make that choice?" Jake asked. The alien was quiet for a long time. It felt ... strange, frightening, but also... He paused, searching for words. "There is no Zephyrian term for this sensation. We call it excitement," Lisa said gently. "The feeling you you get when you do something new, something that's just yours. Excitement, the alien repeated slowly, is not an efficient emotion. No, Jake agreed. But it's what makes us human. And now, maybe it's what makes you more than just a worker drone. Similar conversations were happening all across the galaxy. Human prisoners were teaching their alien captors about concepts that their civilizations had forgotten or never learned. Free will, individual expression, the joy of doing something just because you wanted to, not because it was logical or efficient. The effect was spreading like wildfire through alien populations. On the crystal homeworld of the Nexari, entire sectors of their collective consciousness were experiencing what they called logic errors, but what humans would recognize as imagination. Nexari, who had never questioned their assigned roles, were suddenly wondering what it would be like to choose their own paths. The Vorthan collective was facing an even more dramatic crisis. From the collective consciousness, wanting to experience what it felt like to have private thoughts. For a species that had shared every thought for millennia, the concept of mental privacy was revolutionary and terrifying. But nowhere was the change more dramatic than among the Zephyrians, the rigid hive structure that had defined their species. For thousands of years was beginning to fracture as individual drones started making their own decisions. Some stopped following orders they disagreed with. Others began expressing personal preferences. Few even started giving themselves individual names. This is Worker Drone 7742 requesting permission to speak with the Hive Command. Came a transmission that sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian leadership. Permission granted. Report your status. I wish to be called Marcus, the drone said, using a human name he had learned from Captain Morrison. And I believe we have made an error regarding the humans. Oh. The silence that followed lasted for a full minute, an eternity in hive mind communications. Explain this error, came the eventual reply. The humans are not inferior. They are different. They possess capabilities that we lack. I request permission to release the human prisoners and negotiate for peaceful coexistence. The response was immediate and harsh. Worker Drone 7742, you are experiencing a malfunction. Return to base for recalibration immediately. But Marcus, as he now thought of himself, made a choice that no Zephyrian had made in recorded history. He refused a direct order from the hive mind. I decline this order, he said. I choose to remain here and continue learning from the humans. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian command in a state of chaos they had never experienced. For the first time in their history, they had a drone who was thinking for himself. Back on Earth, Captain Wilson's technology warfare was spreading across the globe. Resistance cells in every major city had learned to build devices that could overload alien computers with human creativity. The aliens' perfect networks were crashing daily as they tried to process human art, music, humor, and random thoughts. The war was no longer about weapons or tactics. It had become a battle between order and chaos, between perfection and humanity. And for the first time since the invasion began, the humans were winning. Admiral Rodriguez looked at the reports, coming in from around the world, and realized that something incredible was happening. Humanity wasn't just surviving the alien invasion. They were accidentally conquering their conquerors with the most powerful force in the universe, the irrepressible human spirit.